of the devil that are pretty popular today: transgenders, homosexuality. Today we're going to get into something a little different, but it is one of the wiles that are very popular. I'll open up with was working a minute ago. There we go. Okay, here's the first verse. Proverbs 6:16 through 19. There are 6 things that the Lord hates, 7 that are an abomination to him. So all of these are abomination to him. Haughty eyes, a lying tongue, hands that shed innocent blood, a heart that devises wicked plans, feet that make haste to run to evil, a false witness who breathes out lies, and one who sows discord among brothers. Next is from Romans, first chapter, verse 28. And since they did not see fit to acknowledge God, God gave them up to a debased mind to do what ought not to be done. They were filled with all manner of unrighteousness, evil, covetousness, malice. They were full of envy, murder, strife, deceit, maliciousness. They are gossips, slanderers, haters of God, insolent, haughty, boastful, inventors of evil, disobedient to parent, foolish, faithless, heartless, ruthless. Though they know God's righteous decree that those who practice such things deserve to die, and they not only do them but give approval to those who practice them. That's a list. I'll tell you what, Romans 1, that list that they have, it just seems like you run out of bad things, but no, there's a lot of bad things here. But I highlighted some so you can kind of get the drift I'm going to. Jeremiah 1:5, before I formed you in the womb, I knew you, and before you were born, I consecrated you. I appointed you a prophet to the nations. What subject do you think I'm going to get into tonight? Yes.
Abortion.
You heard, you were at the house, so you kept looking at my...
No.
Well, abortion is probably, it's just an amazing, it's an awful subject, but it's something that we need to look at and what the Bible talks about. Life. Life is very important, and what I want to do is I want to tell you a story. It's a story that some of you know, you're probably very familiar with, but I'd like to tell you the story and as we go through this story, I want you to think about abortion, what people say about abortion, and the rationale that they have. Now, I'll give you a timeline here. And the timeline starts off with Luke 1:24. Now, after these days, his wife Elizabeth became pregnant, and she kept herself in seclusion for 5 months, saying, "This is the way the Lord has dealt with me in the days when he looked with favor upon me to take away my disgrace among the people." What was her disgrace? Okay. Remember her husband's name? Zacharias. And what did he do? What was Zacharias' thing? The angel appeared to Zacharias, and what did he tell him?
He's going to have a son. He down the angels, and the angel shut his mouth for
So, I mean, we're all adults, but there's a couple of things that he said. First of all, I'm an old man. He said, I can't have children, I'm an old man. Obviously, old men have situations where they can't cause someone to get pregnant. And then he said, not only that, my wife is very old and she has no longer her period. So, you know, people knew what was going on. They knew the reproductive system. But the angel, what did he tell him? He said, because you don't believe me, you're not going to be able to talk until your son is born. How long was that? 9 months. You remember where he was when all of this happened? He was doing some priestly duties that when looking this up, I found out that Zacharias was doing priestly duties that sometimes a priest might have once or twice in a lifetime. Very, very important duties. And then when he came out, obviously people said, oh, he must have had a vision or something, but he can't talk. Well,
I think he should have been reading the scroll about Abraham. How old was Abraham? Like 99?
Sarah, yeah.
I mean, and Sarah, she was, you know.
Well, sometimes it's hard to think. Sometimes it's hard to think about yourself. It's okay to think about other people, but it's hard to think about yourself. So here we have Elizabeth became pregnant. So let's put a timeline on that. We'll start off as Elizabeth becomes pregnant. The next thing that happens is about 6 months go by, and then I want you to look at that. That's kind of an outline of an embryo that's about 26 to 28 weeks. So John the Baptist would have been in about this particular period of gestation, of development. Heads are formed. You know, there's heart beating, obviously, and this is at 6 months. So here's what happens next. Luke 1:6 beginning. Now in the 6th month, the angel Gabriel was sent from God to the city of Galilee named Nazareth, to a virgin betrothed to a man whose name was Joseph, of the descendants of David. And the virgin's name was Mary. And coming in, he said to her, "Greetings, favored one, the Lord is with you." But she was very perplexed at this statement and was pondering what kind of greeting this was. And the angel said to her, "Do not be afraid, Mary, for you have found favor with God. And behold, you will conceive in your womb and give birth to a son, and you shall name him Jesus. He will be great and will be called the Son of the Most High, and the Lord God will give him the throne of his father David, and he will reign over the house of Jacob forever, and his kingdom will have no end." Okay, so we know the scenario pretty much. What did Mary say next?
How can this be? Because I'm a virgin.
She was perplexed. He said, "I have a baby." And so now we go on in verse 34. But Mary said to the angel, "How will this be since I am a virgin?" The angel answered and said to her, "The Holy Spirit will come upon you, and the power of the Most High will overshadow you. For that reason also the Holy Child will be called the Son of God. And behold, even your relative Elizabeth herself has conceived a son in her old age. And she who was called infertile is now in her 6th month. For nothing will be impossible with God." And Mary said, "Behold, the Lord's bondservant, may it be done to me according to your word." And the angel departed from her. So here's exactly the opposite of what happened to Zachariah. She said, "If that's how the Lord wants it, okay, I'll go along with that." All right, so then we'll call this Gabriel appears to Mary. This is 6 months after Elizabeth gets pregnant. So the next thing that happens is we let about a month go by. The reason I'm letting a month go by, it may not even be a month, is because as soon as Mary found out about Elizabeth, what was her inclination?
Go see her.
How? When? When she got a chance?
No, right away.
Yeah, she did it in haste. Here's what it says. Oh, by the way, I'll go back to that in a minute. But now at this time, Mary set out and went in a hurry to the hill country, to the city of Judah, and she entered the house of Zachariah and greeted Elizabeth. When Elizabeth heard Mary's greeting, the baby leaped in her womb, and Elizabeth was filled with the Holy Spirit. And she cried out with a loud voice and said, "Blessed are you among women, and blessed is the fruit of your womb. And how has it happened to me that the mother of my Lord would come to me? For behold, when the sound of your greeting reached my ears, the baby leaped in my womb for joy." Okay, this is probably over what Jesus was at in his development. First off, how does a woman know when she's pregnant? What happens? What's the first indication?
Skip this.
She doesn't have her period, but you know what? By that time, by the 21st day after conception, by the 21st day, the embryo doesn't have a heart, but it has a pumping pipe. It's just a little small pipe that actually beats. And the reason for that is by the 18th or 19th day, now you have to do a few things. First of all, you have to get rid of waste products because like anything else, we have waste. Your cells make waste, but you also have to nourish your cells and you have to get oxygen. At first, it can be done by the blood vessels surrounding the embryo, but after about 20 days, that's not possible. And so a little beating tube with a one-way valve actually starts pumping, and it starts pumping. So by the time, here's my point, by the time a woman misses her period, that little valve, that little pumping tube is already working. Now, what do we know that the Bible teaches us about life? What's the life in someone?
Life is in the blood.
It's in the blood. Now, one might say, well, for the first 2 weeks, the embryo doesn't have anything that's of its own, but by the time a woman finds out she's pregnant, there's already life in that embryo. It's already beating, things are already going through, it's flushing out waste, it's getting oxygen, it's getting nourishment, it's just doing a lot of things. Well, this is about where Jesus was right here. It's just starting to form, the head's forming, and that's that little knob right there is actually the heart tube. Okay, so let's call that Mary visits Elizabeth. So now something else happens. Now about 3 months go by. Where is Elizabeth by the end of this 3 months? She's pretty much ready to have a baby, isn't she? Yes. Because now she's not been pregnant for 9 months. So here's what happens. Luke 56 now. Mary stayed with her about 3 months and then returned to her home. Now the time had come for Elizabeth to give birth, and she gave birth to a son. Now, here's what I'd like to ask you. We'll just go back here for a minute. Here's John the Baptist. That's his development, and here's Jesus. When those two embryos, young babies in the womb, got together, what happened? There was some distinct interaction, wasn't there? The reason there was some distinct interaction is because that little embryo here was Jesus, and this is John the Baptist. Obviously, there was some recognition or something going on. It might have been miraculous, but the only thing you have to point out is that even at 21 to 30 days, this little embryo recognized that little embryo. And so I've always said that if these things happen, don't talk to me about that they're not human life. They're
Just a clump of cells.
Yeah, they're not a clump of shells. And so, okay, now, so what happens? So after the 3 months, Elizabeth gives birth to John. There's our little John right there. He's just born. Now, one of the things I want to see is how far along is Mary by this time?
3 months.
About 4 months. And so this is what an embryo looks like at about 4 months. The little feet have moved out, the legs are starting to develop, there's arms. Sometimes they suck their thumb by now. But, so this is what Mary, now what's going to happen in 5 more months with Mary? Right? And so there's a lot of emphasis, obviously, on the birth of Christ. People call it Christmas, but I don't know when the season was actually. Okay. So let's look at some things here. Throughout all the timeline when Elizabeth and Mary's pregnancy until the birth of John and Christ, there were events with the babies that were, while they were still in their mother's womb. Is that a true statement? Obviously, it's a true statement. And you know, people are now pushing for pre-birth abortion. It's almost to the point of ridiculous, but there's abortions now going from as soon as a woman finds out she's pregnant, almost till the time that the baby's born. And they're actually pushing for something even worse. But let's look at this. At 22 to 26 days after conception, the heart, which is a small tube, as I said, begins to pump the blood supply. The baby continues to develop and grow. Now, Satan has lied to and deceived many people throughout the world into believing that these tiny humans are not worthy to live. The great majority, if you look it up, you'll find out the great majority of these aborted babies were conceived through sin. They're not a husband and wife that don't want another child, although there are abortions that are done because of that. But the great, huge percentage is because two people get together that shouldn't have. She gets pregnant, and what do? You end up aborting the baby. Satan has led the world into believing that fornication is not bad. So one sin, the sin of fornication, now has led to this even worse sin. I don't know if it's worse, but it certainly is a bad sin. It's an abomination because God says it's an abomination for murderers to exist. Let's look at this. I got one more line here. It is no longer a terrible sin, fornication, but more common than a date to the movies and dining out. If you look at first-time individuals fornicating, the percentage is huge. And that's what people expect anymore. I remember, I'm not that old, but I remember when we were young, you go out on a date, you go to a movie, or you go out to dinner or something like that. That's not what people, good people do that, but a lot of people do not. So, now, got one more. There are no longer consequences because abortion is so easy and acceptable. There was a time when abortion was not acceptable. I know a man who spent his life in jail because he messed around with a girl while he was married, and he tried to give her an abortion, and she bled and she died, and he ended up, he was a member of our town. We all knew him. I knew his kids and everything, but now it's easy and acceptable. You can go, I think Plant City has some, they're all over. Doctors are doing that all the time. Abortion clinics, you don't even need to go to a Planned Parenthood. You can go to a lot of places and get abortions, yes.
Well, that's what I was gonna say, instead of calling it an abortion clinic, they've lightened that terminology up too for women's health care or planned whatever, to make it a more palatable term, so it doesn't sound so bad for them for guilt, you know?
It's so bad, it's beyond belief. Now, I want you to pick a number. This is a census from 2024. It's a worldwide census. How many babies do you think were aborted worldwide in 2024? Pick a number and see if it comes up to this.
2 million.
73 million, just in 2024. 73 million. Do you know what that means? That means that 200,000 babies are aborted every single day. You think Satan has worked has plied his lies and deceit?
He makes Hitler look like a rookie.
Yeah.
It's almost beyond belief. I had to go in 2 or 3 places, and the numbers kept coming up. It's beyond belief.
People look at it like birth control.
They do.
And
They have it.
if they could see a film, once I saw a film of what happens, even after the abortion, what happens, it's just, it makes you wonder if the people that are getting the abortion know what is happening
Well,
completely.
now the major part of that now is pills. If a woman misses her period and she realizes that she's pregnant, she takes a pregnancy test, they can go and you can get a one shot pill and it aborts the baby and that's it. So it's become so easy. That's why I said it's easy and convenient. And then 2 weeks later, you could be shacking up again.
I forgot the lady's name, I don't watch all the history and stuff, but I forgot what it was, the forties or fifties or maybe sixties. Black lady's the one that started it, and it started in the hood. And the reason it was in the hood is to thin out the black population.
I heard
They were
that
having
story.
too many babies, so that's where she concentrated the clinics at, for the black neighborhood.
And now, you know, there's just every population, every nationality, it's worldwide. And that's another thing about computers and cell phones is that what's accepted is now getting further and further along, but I'll get to that in a minute. All right, I have the next one. Proverbs 139. Let's see what the Bible talks about. It says, "For you created my innermost parts, you wove me in my mother's womb. I will give thanks to you because I am awesomely and wonderfully made. Wonderful are your works, and my soul knows it very well." I was going to use this also for the transgender class, because what it's saying is that God is the one who weaves people. God is the one who weaves the child in the womb. And when he weaves it, he determines these things. You know, obviously it's determined by chromosomes and all that, but God is all part of that. He's the one who wonderfully made how we recreate. All right, another one, Genesis 9. God says, "Whoever sheds human blood, by man his blood shall be shed. For in the image of God he made mankind. As for you, be fruitful and multiply, populate the earth abundantly and multiply in it." So these little babies in the womb that are being killed and murdered, they're being made in the image of God. We're talking about a sensitive area that's an abomination to God.
Leo, that Proverbs is Psalms, not Proverbs.
It's Psalms. I'm
Psalm
sorry, did I put
139.
Proverbs? I'm sorry.
Okay.
I was pasting here. Okay, Exodus 21. "Now if people struggle with each other and strike a pregnant woman so that she gives birth prematurely, but there is no injury, the guilty person shall certainly be fined as the woman's husband may demand of him, and he shall pay as the judges decide. But if there is any further injury," and I think it's implying about the child, "then you shall appoint as a penalty life for life."
That's right. Say that last three words.
Life for life.
Is that inspired?
That's inspired.
So who said that?
God did.
God did.
So, there's no way to get around it. Now, yes, go ahead.
It's kind of like today's laws, you know, if somebody kills a pregnant woman, they.
In a-
they can
in a
get-
crash,
get
yes, it's considered double murder.
manslaughter.
And yet that woman might have been
That's
going
right.
to an abortion
Then
clinic.
it's just a clump of cells, and it's her body and her right at that point, so they claim.
Exactly.
Yeah, it doesn't matter how far along she is, she could be 2 weeks pregnant. And that is because I deal with inmates that have done that if they, cause the wreck and kill, there's a double
Double murder.
DUI manslaughter or whatever.
Doesn't that sound like hypocrisy
Double standard.
of our system, a double standard? Yeah. Okay. Next one I'm going to go into is cursing and vulgarity. And the reason I wanted to do something on this is because, remember I told you, as I've been looking up a lot of different things about homosexuality and gender and transgenders and all this. One of the things I'm finding out is that the way that you get people to change their mind is you change their language. You make things sound better, and then it starts to get accepted. Well, has anybody noticed in the last 20 years that cursing and vulgarity have gotten worse?
Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, yes.
Going back to the previous subject, if you were to go out in the woods and find an eagle nest with eggs in it, if you were to bust those eggs, they would put you under the jail.
Oh, yeah.
It's not an eagle, it's a potential eagle. But now they can take a potential person and it's okay. It's just,
A friend of mine, Louis Prunier, you remember him? He was an engineer at where Marie and I met. I think I said the story, but I think it's worth repeating to show you. We were up in, not in Gloucester, we were in Southbridge, Massachusetts at the time, but this happened up in Gloucester, Massachusetts. A whale got beached. I don't know, the tide was going out, the tides up there are 12 foot, so it can easily get beached. Well, within just a few hours, they had over 1,000 people up there. They put ropes around this whale, and they literally dragged him into the deeper water. And Louis Prunier was looking at this, said, "Leo, come on over here." He said, look at all these people. I mean, there were people everywhere. You know, they just discoordinated, but they were there. He said, if this was a man that was dying on the beach, you might have 2 or 3 people there that might be interested, but not 1,000. He said it's going to get to the point where we're not going to be able to do things to animals that you can do to humans. And it's gotten that way. There's some things that you can't touch a dog. I mean, what's that cow thing? Manatee. Manatees are you never can. Bluebirds, it just goes on and on. No, but anyways, so that's it. Cursing and vulgarity. Let's look at this. God in His wisdom has not condemned specific words. Why? Because there's 6,500 languages spoken in the world and around 20,000 dialects and 300 sign languages. But you know something that's not unique about all of those?
They all have curse words.
Yes. Each have vulgar words and phrases. Even sign language, I've seen that before. Sign language, you can get vulgar there. French, it doesn't matter, there's just every language. So, God does not want His children sinning that way. He doesn't want us using vulgar language. Ephesians 4:29. Let no unwholesome word come out of your mouth. Let no unwholesome word. That's an interesting word. So in other words, what are good words? They're wholesome. They're useful for transmitting our thoughts and our needs and vice versa. But unwholesome words don't do anything. They upset God. Romans 12:14. Bless those who persecute you. Bless and do not curse. So who's these people that we're not supposed to curse?
those that persecute you.
The bad people, even if they're bad people, we're still not supposed to curse them. We're not supposed to say bad things about them. So we have to be careful. We don't talk bad about anybody. That's what my mother used to say. Leo, my father never talked bad. Her father was a very interesting character. He drank a lot, but he never was nasty. And he always used to come up when somebody was at the bar and he'd get all upset. He used to come up and says, I know that there's something wrong. Talk to me, let me know. He was that kind of guy. So my mother kind of took over for him, and she said, we used to talk about somebody, I don't know, somebody got me upset, and she said, no, don't talk bad about them. Well, that's exactly what we're told. It just, there's no reason to curse, none. What about another one here? 1 Peter 3:10. For the one who desires life, to love and see good days, must keep his tongue from evil and his lips from speaking deceit. Who speaks deceit? We've been studying. Satan. He doesn't want us to be into the Satan's realm of things. He wants us to be away from that. So evil, deceit, and lies, something we need to stay away from. James 3:6-10. And the tongue is a fire, the very world of unrighteousness. The tongue is set among our body's parts as that which defiles the whole body and sets on fire the course of our life, and is set on fire by hell. For every species of beasts and birds, of reptiles and creatures of the sea is tamed, and has been tamed by the human race. But no one among mankind can tame the tongue. It is a restless evil, full of deadly poison. With it we bless our Lord and Father, and with it we curse people who have been made in the likeness of God. From the same mouth come both blessing and cursing. My brothers and sisters, these things should not be this way. If that's not plain, then there's really not much to add to that, is there? Yes.
If nobody can tame the tongue, then why should we try? He said nobody can tame it, nobody.
That's because everybody sins with their tongue, and they shouldn't, but that's just what happens.
That's an excellent question. So, since it cannot be tamed, what is James trying to tell you to do?
Control.
Don't ever trust it. Always keep, so to speak, your eye on your tongue. Always know what feeds the tongue. Always look. You can never think, oh, I used to have a problem with my... No, you cannot tame it. It cannot fully be something you can never think about. You have to think about it all the time because it's extremely dangerous.
And there's anger management. Anger management classes, that's one of the things that happens is that when people get angry, they say things that they never would have said if they were in there thinking correctly. A lot of marriages end up, people say some things when they're very angry that they wish they had never said before.
Well, it's kind of like, too, you can say, well, we're sinful, so why bother? I mean, it's the same type of thing. You bother because we're supposed to be holy as God is holy, and we just continue to live in the light. We're not gonna, it's not always gonna be right, but we have to still keep trying.
That's what I said in my exhortation the other day. We always think about being reborn, but we actually died to sin. So if we put a sin to death, then part of that is this cursing and bad language, yes.
I think it's always been an interesting topic as far as who made these words vulgar or bad in society. That we, because if you look back 75 years ago, there's a lot of words that we consider today as one of the four-letter words that shouldn't be used. That was common words that were used back then, like maybe the S word, and it wasn't a bad word. It was on a farm. It was chicken.
My brother brought up our farm.
Or female dog, or whatever it was that was used that weren't bad words back then, and we have changed that throughout the 50 to 100 years. That like who and what makes things vulgar, and then you could throw in the euphemisms, changing one letter out of that word just so you can use similar word is just as bad.
There's whole lessons about
euphemisms and.
Well, one of the worst words that people use is a police term. It's an abbreviation, and people, the more that you emphasize it with anger and all, I mean, after a while, it turns into something horrible, you know? But it used to not be a bad word.
Okay, let's look at this
I
one.
can tell you an experience of my own self in when I worked down in Ybor City. All Spanish-speaking people, and you don't know what they're saying. I figured it out after a while, but first day I'm there on the job, my father-in-law, he's walking around, he's introducing me. And, well, wasn't father-in-law at that time, but he was later. And he called one of them, Holy Holy. I'm thinking, I don't know who she is. I think she must be a religious nut, you know? He called her Holy Holy. Well, I found out later, that meant she was a royal pain in the rear and no nice terms. And I thought, first thing I thought, she must be
Yeah,
a
you gotta be,
religious nut.
you gotta be careful because, yeah, well, in our household, I had, you know, we brought up French, so.
Yeah,
There's
So,
words that,
it's
words that
just,
little kids say,
you
no,
know,
no, 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 no,
yeah.
you're not supposed to say that, when Papa says it, yeah.
I'm sorry, this may not be a fair question and maybe off topic, but since you bring it up, how come they say pardon my French?
Because there's a lot of cuss words that have been transliterated. Here's what happened. In France, during the war, there was a lot of promiscuity going on. And so there was a lot of words like, let me give you just one. There's a French term, you want to take a shower with me? It doesn't mean taking a shower.
Okay.
But so people would come back home and say, well, pardon my French, because they got to know every bad French word in France, so.
So that first thing they say is we, you know.
Okay, let's look at this now. Satan knows those thousands of languages in the world. You know, he's a linguist. He doesn't only know English, he knows every language there is.
Sure.
He's multilingual and tries to have bad language be part of a person's speech. It is another deceitful sin he tempts us with. He doesn't only tempt people in English, he tempts people in French and Spanish and you name it, whatever language it is. There's curse words and as far as God is concerned, he didn't say you're not to use certain words in English. He said you're not to use certain words, period. And so it doesn't matter what language it is, we've got to be careful of our speech. Okay, next Sunday, I gave you some homework. Gave you some homework papers about looking up how God gives us scriptures that teach how to get away from the wiles of the devil. Okay, that's what we're going to be looking at probably a Sunday and then finish up Wednesday. And then next Sunday after this one, Greg is going to, what is it on? It's on.
Oh, it's more wiles of the devil, but
It's in a
stuff that I've been itching to talk about.
All right. Okay, so there we go. God's provision for fighting the wiles of the devil. Please make sure you got your homework for Sunday then. Okay. Thank you. You don't need this, do you?
No.
Great. I'll use the book if you want.
Good evening.
Evening.
Thank you, Leo. I want to read something to you tonight. Who remembers Paul Harvey? He had a couple little phrases that he would always say. He would say, and now the rest of the story. Or at the end, he would say, and that's the rest of the story, or something like that. Or he would sign off by saying, Paul Harvey is dead. But he had somewhat of a poem or a story that he read one time, and I'd like to read it to you. And this is piggybacking off of Leo's class about the devil. And it's Paul Harvey's "If I Were the Devil" talk. I don't know if you've ever heard it or not. If I were the devil, if I were the prince of darkness, I'd want to engulf the whole world in darkness. And I'd have 1/3 of its real estate and 4/5 of its population, but I wouldn't be happy until I had seized the ripest apple on the tree. So I'd set about, however necessary, to take over the United States. I'd subvert all the churches first. I'd begin with a campaign of whispers with the wisdom of a serpent. I would whisper to you as I whispered to Eve, do as you please. To the young, I would whisper that the Bible is just a myth. I would convince them that man created God instead of the other way around. I would confide that what's bad is good and what's good is square. And the old I would teach to pray after me, O Father, which thou art in Washington. Then I'd get organized. I'd educate authors in how to make lurid literature exciting. so that anything else would appear dull and uninteresting. I'd threaten TV with dirtier movies and vice versa. I'd peddle narcotics to whom I could. I would sell alcohol to ladies and gentlemen of distinction. I'd tranquilize the rest with pills. If I were the devil, I'd soon have families that war with themselves, and churches at war with themselves, and nations at war with themselves, until each in its turn was consumed. And with promises of higher ratings, I'd have mesmerizing media fanning the flames. If I were the devil, I would encourage schools to refine young intellects, but neglect to discipline emotions. Just let those run wild until before you knew it, you'd have to have drug-sniffing dogs and metal detectors at every schoolhouse door. Within a decade, I'd have prisons overflowing. I'd have judges promoting pornography. Soon I could evict God from the courthouse, then from the schoolhouse, then from Congress or House of Congress. And in his own churches, I would substitute psychology for religion and defy science. I would lure priests and pastors into misusing boys and girls and church money. If I were the devil, I'd make symbols of Easter an egg and the symbols of Christmas a bottle. If I were the devil, I'd take from those who have and give to those who want until I had killed the incentive of the ambitious. And what do you bet I could get whole states to promote gambling as a way to get rich? I would caution against extremes and hard work and patriotism and moral conduct. I would convince the young that marriage is old-fashioned and that swinging is more fun and what you see on TV is the way to be. And thus I could undress you in public, and I could lure you into bed with diseases for which there is no cure. In other words, if I were the devil, I would just keep on doing what he's doing. That was written in 1965. And we've watched for the past 61 years of it playing out. Exactly the role that it was on, like Paul Harvey talked about in 1965. 61 years. He said, well, because he could kind of see where this was going. Well, if I was the devil, I would take God out of the schoolhouses. I would do this. I would make TV. I would just keep on doing what I'm doing, and look where we're at. So I appreciate Leo's class and the content that he's bringing to us about the devil. 1 Peter chapter 5, verse 8, be of sober spirit, be on the alert. Your adversary, the devil, prowls around like a roaring lion seeking someone to devour. And as Leo mentioned, he's not looking to devour who he's already got. He's looking to devour Christians and those who are following God. There's a footnote in here to Matthew 24:42, and I read that also. Therefore be on the alert, for you do not know which day your Lord is coming. Be on the alert, because the devil's out there. The devil's trying to get us, and it's been playing out for years, way before 61 years. How about as long as the earth has been here? Since Eve, Adam and Eve. So if there's any